Is anyone surprised at this point? No, seriously. Like, is anyone surprised that in one of actually the biggest game of the season to date, the Penguins just totally no-showed it, and now they're out of a playoff spot? I wish I was a little bit surprised, but I'm not. They've been Jekyll and Hyde all season, and 4 games left, they're out of the playoff spot. We're gonna dive into this humiliating, embarrassing loss to the New Jersey Devils right after this drop. We have a lot to get into, especially when it comes to the effort and the defensive play from this game. It's all coming up right after this drop.
You're Locked On Penguins, your daily podcast on the Pittsburgh Penguins, part of the Locked On Podcast Network. Your team every day.
Hello and welcome back to another episode of the Locked On Penguins podcast. I am your host, Hunter Hodes. Remember to follow me on Twitter at Hunter Hodes. Follow the show's Twitter at LORSO Penguins. And of course, thank you all so much for making this your first listen of the day. Today's episode is brought to you by Game Time. You can download the Game Time app, create an account, and use code LOCKEDONNHL for $20 off your first purchase. So, Devils 5, Penguins 1, and that's probably the best way I can describe this game. Just yuck. A humiliating, embarrassing, pathetic loss by the Black and Gold, coupled with a Panthers win over the Sabres in regulation. Now they have no games in hand. They're 1 point behind both the New York Islanders and the Florida Panthers going into the final 4 games of the regular season. They will play again on Thursday, so the final week of the season, I should say. Wow. This was their biggest game of the season, and the Penguins came out like it was a preseason game in late September. What the hell was that? And I understand the New Jersey Devils are one of the best teams in hockey. They're young, they're fast, they're hungry, they have star talent, they got depth, they got good defense. Vitek Vanacek has really transformed himself into a good goaltender after he struggled in Washington. Not taking anything away from them. They're going to be a tough out in the playoffs, whether they play Carolina or, the first wild card spot, or whether they play the Rangers. I think the Rangers is probably their top matchup right now. But Penguins didn't show anything resembling even a fight in this game. You could tell from the opening shift that they were not ready to play. Not even in the slightest. First shift, they're being sluggish, giving up a scoring chance. Next shift after that, same thing. Next after that, same thing. It was a miracle this game was scoreless until about the 9-minute mark of the first period when Dougie Hamilton got his 2020 first goal of the season. I believe that's the first time a Devils defenseman has ever scored 20 goals in a single season for them in their history. So congratulations to Dougie. He's been a great player for them. But, wow. That's the way you're starting out a game that is of the utmost importance to you standings-wise. It looked like, I'm not going to say they don't care because, I obviously think every player cares. But effort-wise, it looked like they didn't even want to be there. And at this time of year, we're April 4th. The weather is gorgeous. You can tell the playoffs are coming just based on the weather today in the Steel City. 70 degrees, sunny. It's going to be 80 tomorrow and sunny. A little bit of storms later in the day, I think. And this is how they're playing. It's ridiculous. It's absolutely ridiculous. And then the Penguins give up another goal on a 2-on-1 because Jeff Petry had a ridiculously awfully timed pinch. Cannot do that situation where the puck is, and how the Devils have burdened the Penguins numerous times in these past 4 to 5 matchups because of how much faster they are. And Petry decided to pinch there, gives up a 2-on-1. P.O. Joseph makes the wrong read, is kind of playing that like a center, not a defenseman. I don't really know what he was doing there. And Dawson Mercer has an easy tap in to make it 2-0. Honestly, from then on, the game was basically over. You weren't playing the Detroit Red Wings at Little Caesars Arena where you could score 3 goals in the matter of a few minutes. Even though they lost that game, at least they were able to battle back. That was not in the cards for this one. And then, excuse me, the second period comes. Jake Gensel, for some reason, is not shooting the puck when he has a prime scoring chance. He's deferring to Crosby there when he has 35 goals this season. I'm not really sure what he was doing. You take a penalty, you're down 2-0. You're probably about to kill it off. And then Jeff Petry sails the puck out of play. You have to kill off a power play for 28 more seconds. They can't even do that. 3-0. It's all over. Just inexcusable hockey from virtually every player on this team. I got people in my mentions saying like, "Oh, well, Hunter, how did Chris Letang look tonight?" Because I said he's the best defenseman in franchise history. And I'm like, why is that people's go-to? Like, we're just going to single out someone when the whole team played like, as the kids like to say, dog water. Team played like crap. I don't think, other than maybe Drew O'Connor, nicely score, other than maybe those two, virtually everyone on this team played like crap. They all look like they didn't even want to be there. Goaltending stunk. Special teams were bad. 5-on-5 play stunk. You name it. That was a classic game where they were outclassed in every way possible. They were lucky they probably didn't lose like 8-1 or something. This was a team that literally gave up late in that third period 3 separate odd man rushes on the power play when it was 5-1. How is that even possible? Like, I don't even know what Tar Reardon is doing for the power play. I was on board for him with the extension with Mike Vellucci because I thought they were going to improve some stuff with the special teams. Wow. I will take the L on that because both units have been terrible this season. I wouldn't mind if they do decide to bring Mike Sullivan back after this season, and I think I'm leaning towards that they will. They better be looking for new assistant coaches, I think. I know they just signed them to do extensions, but you got to make some changes there. That is one part as a head coach where you can make a difference, is like one part of being a head coach that you can make a difference is the hiring of your assistant coaches because they handle the forwards and the defense and the special teams and stuff. Mike Sullivan has failed with these two hires. Tar Reardon, he has been an accomplished coach during his career, but his power plays do not work with this team. Mike Vellucci, he's interviewed for a couple of NHL head coaching jobs. His penalty kill and his work with the forwards, hasn't worked this season outside the top 6. Everyone in there scoring 20 goals. But those players were scoring 20 goals well before he came along. So yeah, they got their butts whooped. And you want to look at some numbers at 5v5 tonight, just because, I like pain. Devils had 53% of the shot attempts. They had 63% of the scoring chances, 60% of the expected goals, 63% of the scoring chances. If you go to all situations, they had 55% of the shot attempts, 66% of the scoring chances. They actually doubled them up in that. 69% of the high danger chances, 63% of the expected goals. Penguins no-showed in the worst way possible. I'm sorry. With your backs, they're not fully against the wall, kind of, but going into tonight, with everything on the line, that's how you play. Where is the message being lost? Even the top players were terrible. What was that? You can't be playing like that this late in the season and expect to make the playoffs, or if you get in, expect to even make any noise in the playoffs. Justin Marshall said it last week, and I agree with him now. If they get in, do you guys see them winning a game? 2? Maybe see them somehow squeaking one out if Tristan Jarry has the game of his life. But they're just going to get 8 alive by whoever they play if they get in. I'd rather, of course, see them get in. More content for the show, more good content for you all. And they're not going to have a shot at Connor Bedard, so that would also stink for them not to get in. But, man, I understand the Penguins have struggled against this team a lot this season and going back to last season. But it is unacceptable to play like that in games 78 out of 82 with everything on the line. They got outclassed in every way possible. It's very concerning to me. Very, very concerning. That wraps up this first segment. Coming up in the second segment, we're going to get into how, just how much Ron Hextall's footprints are all over this roster, as a lot of his acquisitions really stood out tonight, and not in a good way. That's coming up right after this. But before we get to that, it's time to talk about game time. So, just for you all, think about a time, when you were stressed out having to buy tickets for something. Maybe it's a concert, sporting event, comedy club show. For me, it was actually the Guns N' Roses show I went to a couple of years ago. I thought I wasn't able to get tickets because, there weren't many of them for the show in Baltimore. I was able to get them kind of last minute. It was honestly one of the best decisions I ever made because Guns N' Roses, as I'm wearing right now, is a great band. So buying tickets to your favorite events, they should not be stressful. Game Time, though, is the fast and easiest way to buy tickets for all the sports, music, comedy, and theater near you. With killer deals on last-minute tickets and their best price guarantee, you can stop stressing over the tickets and start getting hyped for the fun that you will have. Again, they are the place for last-minute ticket deals. Forget planning months in advance. They have deals on tickets right up to the day of the event. You get exclusive flash details on tickets for football, basketball, baseball, concerts, comedy, theater, hockey, and so much more. The Game Time guarantee means you always get the best price. If you find tickets in the same section and row for less, Game Time will credit you 110% of the difference. Snag the tickets without the stress with Game Time. You can download the app right now, create an account, and you use Locked On NHL for $20 off your first purchase. Terms apply. Again, remember, you can create an account, download the app, and redeem the code Locked On NHL for $20 off. Download Game Time today. Last minute tickets, lowest price guaranteed. All right, I'm back here on this episode of the Locked On Penguins podcast. I am your host, Hunter Hodes. Remember to follow me on Twitter, Hunter Hodes. Follow the show's Twitter at MRSR Penguins. And of course, thank you all so much for making this your first of the day. Let's get into this topic and how tonight, just a lot of the acquisitions that Hextall has made over the past year and a half, honestly, last couple of months, they were on display tonight and not in a good way. I continue to be flabbergasted as to how the Penguins gave up a second-round pick for Mikael Granlund. I'm not trying to beat a dead horse here. I promise you guys. I fully promise. I'm not trying to fully pick on him. I don't, dislike him as a player, as a person. It is not his fault. This is squarely on the general manager. It was nice to see Granlund actually shoot the puck once tonight because he hit the post. I think a few other times that probably goes in. I'm glad to see him actually shoot it every once in a while. Otherwise, though, it was another really rough night for him. His defensive work on a couple of the goals was really shoddy. And, he's never been a good defensive forward in this league, in terms of, JFresh's player chart. 97 to 98% of his peers rank higher defensively than him. So that's never been his forte. But I didn't think it would be this freaking bad when he came over from Nashville. He has no defensive awareness at all. And it's still very puzzling to me that Mike Sullivan puts him on the penalty kill game after game after game. Jeff Petry, he's not living up to that cap hit. I understand some of the metrics are more favorable to him. I've gone on The Athletic. I've seen Dom Luchuskin's chart for him. It's actually not terrible, but there's definitely a difference between that and the eye test, because my eye test is telling me something completely different. My eyes are telling me that he's just playing like crap. But yet when I look at the numbers, which again, I do use them and I do trust them, it's almost like, wow, he's actually not that bad. I think the answer kind of lies a little bit in the middle, but tonight he really struggled. Excuse me, just not good enough at all. That pinch that he had that led to the second goal in the first period was one of the worst decisions I think I've ever seen him make as a defenseman. There's no reason to pinch there. You're not going to be getting the puck. All you had to do was pull back, skate backwards. They don't score there. It's only 1-0 at that point. With how the game was going, they probably don't win anyway. But, with how the rest of the goals went, the Devils would have had to find other ways to score. I don't know if Dawson Mercer even gets a hat trick in this game. Almost forgot about that. Yeah, Dawson Mercer had a hat trick, people, in case anyone forgot. So there's a really rough game for him. I honestly think his season has just been really up and down. I think more downs than ups. He's still signed for a couple more years, $6.25 million. It's not looking like a good trade right now. And I will take the L on that as well. If you have been listening to the show since the summer, I said I think the Penguins were going to get a net positive out of this because I think he could bring more offense to the table than Marino. I think he could bring more defensive awareness than Marino did. I thought he was an upgrade over him on the second pairing. It's kind of been a little bit of a wash at best in terms of Marino for Petry. I know Marino was traded for Ty Smith, but in terms of replacing Marino, it is Petry on that spot. Just kind of been a wash, if you ask me. I would love to see what this team would look like with Mike Matheson right now. That's for sure. But that's a trade that not looking too shabby right now. It's definitely, I think, a little bit of an L, not like a massive one like some of these other ones, but I'm just not a big fan of it right now. And I think that just goes to show, how bad Hextall is at, player evaluations, and all that in his front office. And yeah, I think there's a lot of nepotism, in the Penguins front office, with how, just a bunch of Hextall's hiring his best friends and the best friends are hiring their children to run the show. I don't know if really anyone there knows how to evaluate proper talent. And it's one reason I'm really hoping that this ownership group makes a change when this disastrous tire fire of the season comes to an end. But, those two players tonight really just not playing well at all. Two major acquisitions from Hextall. And yeah, Jeff Carter, he didn't really do anything tonight. That's kind of been par for the course for most of the season. His fingerprints are all over this roster. He has sent this team, Hextall that is, to its grave. He is the main reason why this is out right now. I said this on my Twitter. I'll say it now. With Brian Rust's goal tonight, he keeps saying hot. Penguins have 6 20-goal scorers. And I have a stat for you all when it comes to that. The Penguins' 6 20-goal scorers. It's the most they've had in a single season since, I'll tell you, 1995-1996, which was the highest scoring team in Penguins history. Per Bob Grove, Mario had 69 that year. Yager had 62. Peter Nevded had 45. Sandstrom had 35. Ron Francis had 27. Smolinski had 24. Yup. 6 20-goal scores. First time since 1995-96. I'm making sure. Yeah, Peter Nedved. Jesus Christ! If I mispronounced that guy's name, if I mispronounced his name, you all have the permission to take over the show because that would have been really embarrassing. Sometimes I get screwed up easy names on this show, which is ridiculous. But yeah, if you had told me that this team would have 6 20-goal scores by game 78 of the season, I would have said they probably would have 100 points. They wouldn't be out of a playoff spot with only 4 games to go. That's just how bad things have gone for this team this season. It's pathetic. So, yeah. In other words, you all can only hope that we get, that this team, I shouldn't say, cannot say we. I'm not part of the team. I cover the team. I think everyone can only hope that this team in this ownership group knows what the true problems are and they fix them during this offseason. But that's my segment on just how Ron Hextall's latest roster acquisitions continue to be absolute and utter duds. Coming up in the final segment, we're going to get into the schedules for the final 4 games for each of the 3 teams really in the race and who really has the edge, if you ask me. Now, before we touch on that, we do have to discuss Built Bar. If you're looking for a delicious treat but don't want all that fat and calories, then you got to try a Built Bar. What makes Built Bar so good? Well, for starters, they're covered in 100% real chocolate, and that's right, real chocolate. And they come in unbelievable flavors like churro, peanut butter brownie, and coconut almond. I'm not sure how Built does it, but these bars taste like a candy bar while maintaining amazing macros. And what's even better is that they are healthy. They only have 130 calories and 4 grams of sugar with a whopping 17 grams of protein. And now you don't need to wait around to get a box. For years we've been talking about ordering your Built Bars at Built.com, but now you can get them at Walmart or Sam's Club. Just go there, ask for cookies and cream, double chocolate, or coconut puffs. or even brownie batter and churro, you can thank me later when it comes to both of those. All right, I'm back in this episode of the Locked On Penguins podcast. I am your host, Hunter Hodes. Remember to follow me on Twitter, Hunter Hodes. Follow this show's Twitter at Analyst Penguins. Mike Sullivan is just saying whatever to the media. It's just the same stuff. It boils down to details. We got to make the better decisions. Yeah, I've been hearing that for 78 games now. I'm like, I don't think these players are going to change, unless, big changes are made this offseason. No, not to the core players, but to the supporting cast. So 4 games left. It's still basically a 3-team race with Buffalo's loss. That puts a damper on their playoff hopes. They have a tough schedule here down the stretch. They're 5 points back to the Penguins still. Red Wings won, but they're kind of out of it at this point. Washington just got eliminated. Ottawa just lost again. They got a point, though, but they're basically cooked. Looking at the other 2 teams in front of the Penguins, Islanders have 4 games left. They have the Lightning tomorrow night. If they lose that opens up the door for the Penguins to have their control their own destiny. That would be big if the Lightning could help out the Penguins. But after that, the Islanders have the Flyers, the Canadiens, and the Capitals. 3 teams that they should be able to beat. For the Panthers, they have the Maple Leafs and the Hurricanes, but they might be doing some classic load management, which means resting some players since they are already in playoff spots. And actually, for the Leafs, they're locked into a playoff matchup versus the Tampa Bay Lightning. They just have to decide who's going to get home ice. They also have the Ottawa Senators and the Washington Capitals. So a couple tough games in there if the Hurricanes and the Leafs don't rest players, but I assume they will because those are their final 2 games of the season. And then for the Penguins, Minnesota on Thursday, Detroit Saturday, Chicago Tuesday, and Columbus on Thursday. Penguins have to win these next 4 games. I think if you win these next 4, they'll be feeling pretty good. 3, I think it's going to be a coin flip, though. You really can't afford to drop any of these games. That game on Thursday is basically a must-win now. And I had a feeling, I said coming into this week, you win both these games, that would be awesome. But I did say a split would also be fine, assuming you win those final 3 games against teams I think that you should be expected to beat. Obviously, you can't expect to beat anyone, just when you feel like it. Any team can beat anyone on any given day. But those are still games. If you are a playoff team, those final 3 games, you should be able to win against those 3 teams. But that just puts more pressure on you now to win against the Wild on Thursday, a team that is battling for first place in the Central Division. They don't even have Kirill Kaprizov right now. That is going to be a very tough game for the Penguins to win. But they need to show that they can rise up to the occasion. You're at home. The fans are going to be behind you. You cannot have another no-show like that. If they're able to get some help on Wednesday from the Lightning, and then maybe get some help on Thursday from the Senators, because I think the Senators travel down to Florida to take on the Panthers, that would obviously be big. You can't rely on that. I mean, they have no choice to, because they don't control their own destiny anymore. They lost that privilege tonight, at least for right now, since they have no more games in hand on any of these 2 teams. Games in hand only count if you win them. And the Penguins did not do that at all. Not even close. They've not won any of their games in hand all season. You've watched it play out right now. So puts even more pressure on them going into this game on Thursday. I'll have a full preview for that game on Wednesday and also have some practice notes. Hopefully they'll be able to get Marcus Pettersson back here sooner rather than later. He is really the only true defenseman on this team that can actually play defense. Chris Letang, he's a very good defenseman, but I would say the defensive part of his game doesn't stack up to Marcus Pettersson's. And I don't even think that's a hot take. I'm not even trying to diss him. I just think Pettersson's a better player in his own zone. But yeah, they probably need to win all 4 of these games. 3, it's a coin flip. You don't want to have it rely on that. But there's also reality here, Yins. They win these next 4 games. Islanders and the Panthers win those next 4 games. They're all out of the Penguins. Who's out of the playoffs? Penguins, yep. They don't control their own destiny right now. So they're going to have to win out and hope that one of these 2 teams in front of them drops a game along the way. But It's not looking good right now. They're going to have to, struggle something together here, because what I saw tonight was pathetic. That did not look like a playoff team. That looked like a lottery team. That was men against boys out there. Not acceptable in the slightest. I want to see a much better performance from this team on Thursday. But that'll do it for this episode of the Locked On Penguins podcast. Really appreciate all of you listening to this one. Again, if I had mispronounced Peter Nedved's name wrong, I probably was going to, probably be fired from the show. I think I probably had so many comments on the YouTube page and stuff, and just in my DMs. Hunter, what the heck? But no, had to make sure I got, I tried to make sure I get every name right. I better make sure I get that one right, because, he played for this team for more than one season, obviously. But again, thank you all so much for listening. Really, really appreciate it, and watching, of course. I'll be back with another episode for you all on Wednesday, where I'll, be a little more, hopefully, optimistic and positive. Talk to you all then.